Oui, Stéphanie Pérez pour France Télévisions. Monsieur le Président, Emmanuel Macron ce matin.
Emmanuel Macron this morning highlighted the fact that for the time being we don't have much information about the peace negotiations conducted by the United States. He also believes that the United States are a weak ally. Do you share this opinion?
Thank you for the question. I would ask technically if you could make sure that I could get interpretation from French into Ukrainian to make it louder for me, because I would only hear Emmanuel Macron in the question, and I need to understand what it's all about. Undoubtedly, America is important, very important. And the decisions that America can demonstrate today can influence, can impact in real terms the end of the war. And Putin's desire to do that, because he doesn't want it really, and he really wants to divide Europe and America, and that's exactly what Putin wants. It's Putin who wants it, and his Kremlin machinery has been working on it for more than 1 year, dividing, weakening Europe, dividing the European Union, dividing the United States of America, dividing the United States from within in terms of support for Ukraine, or not supporting Ukraine. And therefore, that's his wish. We want America to be stronger. I agree with Emmanuel that we all need, and it's not just an issue of a wish. We need that America, vis-à-vis Russia, would be stronger. We really want it very much, that the President of the United States, with regard to the owner of the Kremlin, is stronger. And that's important for us. And in order... And we need to work with this. And for that, we need to work at the leaders' level, both on official levels and other formats of diplomacy. We have to work with the White House. Thank you. Suspilne Public Broadcaster, Ukraine, please. Good day, Valeria Pashko, public broadcaster. Mr. President, you started talking about America. There was information that new agreement is being prepared with regard to the minerals between Ukraine and the United States. My question is, could you please open the details? Are we more content and happy with this project than we were before, several weeks ago? Perhaps you're going to go again to sign this in Washington, this agreement. I mean, so far, I'm not going to Washington. I'm not going to go to Washington to go there, because there's no issue on the agenda. Number two, we have a lot of these agreements about the minerals, and I'd like to treat it not theoretically but in practical terms. When we are going to have a final version received from the United States of this or that agreement, another one, because constantly the terms and conditions are being changing, and it seems to me like we have agreed there would be a framework agreement, and then there would be a full agreement. Now, as I understand, the teams, American-Ukrainian teams, are now working on it, because America now is changing these rules and is proposing the full agreement at the get-go. But it requires a detailed, thorough study, because these are serious agreements that are going to be brought before the Parliament and ratified there. But it needs to be worked upon by lawyers. So first, lawyers were working on one agreement, then on another agreement. At the end of the day, we agreed about the framework agreement. Now new rules are in. So, well, you know, we have to act in a reserved manner. as we always try to do, in a calm manner, not being nervous. The lawyers will look at it, they will study it. If there are good things, adequate things, they will be supporting it. If there are issues, the issues always get answers. So we can talk about the agreement, the options of which have been changed constantly. But I wouldn't like to leave the United States with the feeling that Ukraine is against. In general, we have shown constantly have been sending positive signals. We are in favor of the cooperation with the United States of America. We don't want to send any signals that don't want to convince, don't want to push the United States to stop aid to Ukraine, to stop the exchange of intelligence. And therefore, we are acting constructively on a daily basis. Thank you. Colleagues, please be more active, raising your hands so I could see who wants to put questions. Ukraine TV Inter.
Over there.
Good day. Nina Kolomits, Inter TV Marathon United News. President Macron declared today, based on the summit, that Franco-British mission must go to Kiev in order to define and decide what can be done to support the Ukrainian armed forces. Could you tell us about the details that you're aware of, when it's going to happen, and what you're talking about, and whether this agreement includes deploying the military contingent? If, based on today's meeting, what countries are prepared, in what timeframes, what volumes, and if there are any details about it? Yeah, thank you for the question. President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer and I and other leaders were we're paying a lot of attention now to the infrastructure, as I said, to the future infrastructure of security guarantees for Ukraine. The important part of this infrastructure is our armed forces. Its funding, its enhancement, augmentation of the armed forces of Ukraine. We are working on that, and we also, again, we made a common emphasis of all countries that Russia should not and cannot dictate the personnel strength of our armed forces. They can talk about their own country within their borders. That is not of interest to us, but they can't dictate it to us. And it's important that in this direction, they did not have any support. In Europe, we could see they don't have support in Europe. The majority of countries, at least the coalition that gathered today, all support the notion that Ukraine should preserve a strong army, the one that is now countering the Russian invasion. And it's important that this same attitude was present in the United States, because today's meeting also sends this signal to the United States of America and others. As far as going forward is concerned, apart from our army, the security guarantees, that pertains to this contingent. There are a lot of proposals from leaders, and we now see more of them. The number of countries who is prepared in many ways, either in the air or through air defense, or with boots on the ground approach, or some others on the sea, they are prepared to provide security guarantees for Ukraine and send their contingent, their troops. And there are more countries like that. And it's good news. As far as the actions is concerned, the responsibility and modalities of these troops contingent, what it can be done, how it could be used, who will be commanding it. There are a lot of issues. There are fewer answers. There will be a meeting, a Franco-British one, as Emmanuel mentioned. I think some other countries may join in, and they will, in order to see what base has been prepared, put together by Ukraine, where we see it, how we see it, both qualitatively and quantitatively for this deployment. We could start this dialogue in a more material fashion. Thank you. Any British mass media in the room? Any British mass media in the room from the UK? US.
Hi there. My name is Catherine Porter. I'm with the New York Times. I'm wondering
You said yesterday in your televised interview with many different public television stations from around Europe that what you were really hoping to get today was a firmer commitment from this coalition of the willing in terms of security guarantees. It seems you did not get that today. Are you disappointed?
I'm not disappointed. I received them, I got them. The things that are very important for me. And the number who are supporting this is unchanged. And it's a very important and valuable thing. This is our army, support for the army now and after the war is over, and that's important. Then, I'm very content and very satisfied that now and later we will be investing together with our partners into the production of drones and electronic warfare, air defense, investing in these and other technologies. I'm not going to dwell on them now so far. Missiles, drones, etc. That's very important for me. That it's going to be done not only now, but later as well, after the war. It's very important for me also a signal to receive, to have received a signal that we're going to open up platform to produce drones, not only in Ukraine, but that's after the war. And that's also very important for us. That's guaranteeing the expansion of this technological process. What is important as well, these sanctions. After what has been happening in the world, after the signals that we have heard in Saudi Arabia, or from that direction, as far as the sanctions is concerned, and as far as possible lifting of these sanctions is concerned, very dangerous signals. Today, everybody is confirmed. Nobody from the partners present, at least, there is not going to lift the sanctions. On the contrary, we're emphasizing the continuation of the sanctions and the introduction of new packages. As far as the troop contingent is concerned, I just believe that many leaders have their own vision. That's honest. That's to the truth. There are leaders who say we don't have the right to forget about NATO, and I agree with them because this is the simplest infrastructure, the clearest one. And again, let me just repeat myself. It's the cheapest infrastructure. Instead of building a new infrastructure, whole infrastructure in Ukraine, there is a clear infrastructure of security of NATO. It's there. But what we have. This is a question with regard to NATO. It's not quite active. But there are leaders who always support this direction. There are leaders who always say that there can be security guarantees similar to, akin to what other countries have when there's an aggression occurs. A number of countries join in, but join in at full strength. I don't want to go into details of this. This is a bit too early. But then there is a foundation, a base that is based on the Ukrainian army and on the contingent present in Ukraine on the battlefield, in the air, on the land, and on the sea. And we believe that Ukraine will propose an algorithm, the type of dialogue, and I think it'll happen in the next 7 or 10 days, based on the meeting that President Macron has already announced. And we will be working in a friendly manner, maybe arguing, but on the platform that will be already prepared. So we will propose this basic strategy, foundation strategy. Thank you. Next. Therefore, I'm happy. I'm content. So, in the center, please.
Good morning, Didier Loras from the Agence France Presse. For 2 questions. The first one, are you optimistic regarding the capacity of the United States to accept giving Europe the air support it requires in case of European forces are deployed in Ukraine? And my second question, one of your advisors, who is one of the active negotiators today, told the AFP yesterday, and in between inverted commas, that we do not want a interposition force. We want European soldiers ready to fight in Ukraine. Do you agree with that?
Let's just do the second part. As far as my advisor is concerned, yesterday at the press conference with President Macron, I heard the same question. But just somebody was talking about some advisor, nobody named him. But today you're talking about an advisor again. I have some advisor, and the same question. For some reason, an advisor asked yesterday, and the advisor is asking today again. I'd like to understand what kind of advisor is it, and what is meant by this. We don't want what forces exactly. There are forces that should fight. I'm not quite clear what the question is about. Можете пояснити це?
What do you mean about what my advisor? Who is he? Can you show me where is this advisor? It's very interesting. Yeah.
Ce conseiller était nommé directement sur le
This
fil AFP.
advisor was mentioned. His name is Mr. Javkov, if I remember correctly. Yavkov.
Okay, почув.
Voilà, donc c'est lui et qui nous
So
a
that was
déclaré,
him who told
nous voulons
us
des soldats
we
européens
want
qui sont
European
prêts à aller
soldiers
se battre.
ready to
Nous
go
n'avons
and
pas
fight.
besoin
We
de
do
forces
not
de
need
maintien de la paix.
peacekeeping force. Thank you very much.
Нам не потрібно, окей. Зараз я зрозумів запитання. Через переклад я зараз зрозумів.
Okay, I understood the question through the interpretation now. Well, look, we are talking about the troops contingent. We're talking about the military contingent, the presence of
наш захист.
these for our defense and for the representation of our partner countries in the air, on the sea, and on the land. These are troops. We're not talking about the UN troops. We're not talking about the OSCE. There are proposals like that as well on the table. We're discussing about our position with regard to OSCE. With all due respect, we don't want just the presence of the OSCE. It's not a security guarantee. They have their own functionalities, but they don't have a respective mandate for that. They don't have a troops contingent, and the Russians are not afraid of them. The OSCE was represented in Ukraine, do believe our experience, from the very beginning of the first occupation after 2014. The OSCE were in Ukraine. They were both in the east of our country, most of all. They were in the east of Ukraine. They did not have a mandate. The mandate. They couldn't help us with our guys and girls who were incarcerated on the temporarily occupied territories. They couldn't even enter these territories. This is about something different. We're talking about security guarantees, not just simply about a frozen conflict where at the contact line or at the front line, some people show up who ensure some kind of monitoring. That's not what it's all about. This is about professionals, the professionals who guarantee security for Ukraine.
I don't have translation.
Excusez-moi, j'avais posé une première question d'abord sur
I had asked another question regarding your optimism as to the capacity of the United States to grant the Europeans the air support requested in case of deployment of forces on your territory.
Thank you. First, we'd like to act together with the United States of America to ensure that these security guarantees could be provided by Europe and the United States of America, and I keep emphasizing that. As well, and the number of European partners depends on the presence of the United States. We'll have more troops if the United States would support. And what the United States would be prepared to provide, I don't have an answer to that because we haven't discussed that yet with them. For me, what's important, and I discussed that with President Trump, I told him that air defense systems are important for us, but more than once, not just a one-time solution, but a constantly operating system and solution of a total protection of Ukrainian skies. Therefore, we're talking about a high-quality and quantity system, which consists of Patriot systems and NASAMS systems and others. This kind of presence of the United States of America is very important, and I believe this is also a guarantee, a security guarantee, and also the Air Force. We talked about with our European colleagues, but as far as the United States of America, we haven't really raised this issue with them in details yet. Vitaly Sizov, Mr. Freedom Channel. Brussels has adopted a new rearmament program for Europe. They keep emphasizing that Ukraine's participation is unique. It's almost like treating Ukraine like a European Union member, because Ukraine can get this money in part. But how do you view it from Kyiv? Are you also as optimistic as the bureaucrats in Brussels? Or have you received any proposals? Because how they propose it is one of the elements of the security guarantee. Thank you. I would say, I'm not sure this is about security guarantees. I would call it guarantee, security guarantee funding in Ukraine. We're very grateful to the European Union, to the President. We're grateful that they are providing us with the opportunity, at least now, as they are saying it, give an opportunity for Ukraine to access these funding programs at the same level of access as for other members of the European Union, such as ReArm program, as we're talking about this, ReArm Europe. So part of the money that is going to be allocated for the defense of Europe, the partners on the bilateral level, the partners will be adding investment into Ukraine from this funding. And that's important for us, because they will be investing into our production. This is one of our priorities for today. Like I said, the artillery, air defense drones, because the drones and electronic warfare, we have a shortage of that. You know, we are aware of this gap. 50–60% of what we can do and make is funded, has been funded by our budget, our internal domestic budget, or through our bilateral agreements with our partners within the framework of our security agreements. But also there are opportunities for another 50%, 45–50% to produce more. Thank you. Next question.
Bonjour, Julien Perron, magazine Le Point. Vous dites que la position
Good morning, Julien Perron, Le Point. You said that the American position is unclear. We have the feeling that the position of the Europeans is also somehow unclear, including at the end of this summit, which was supposed to clarify the situation. I would like to know whether for you the position of Europeans is clear, and if you think that they're determined enough.
European position today was unanimous. It was clear with regard to the things that I've already talked about. I do apologize that I repeat, but they're important for us. Sanctions, these sanctions, investing into our domestic production, and in any event, security guarantee for Ukraine, and the participation in the future security guarantee system for Ukraine. Unclear position in terms of troops contingent, it's a fact, but because there's no infrastructure in place. But this is not the first summit in this new format for the entire Europe. So with each summit of that kind, the position in this direction is clearer and stronger. For example, I think it's an important thing today, and we haven't spoken about it today. The Ukrainian position is very clear that the negotiation, Europe should be at the negotiation table about the end to the war. It's mandatory. There are no alternatives. It's our clear position. We don't view any alternatives. Europe is very powerful, and it has to have a clear presence around this table. Today, we're all partners in Europe. We have agreed that Europe will be represented by France and Britain. Macron and Starmer. And I believe this is also important. This is a clear position. And we would like to send this signal to all other partners, undoubtedly, undoubtedly to the United States of America. And I believe, and I think that each of such summits, each meeting like this will show us in a clear fashion, much more clearer, our next steps. Not just simply a lot of countries in this system. There were more than 30 countries present today, and we need a joint one. Each country, each leader has their own view. But what unites us is that everybody is in support of speaks in support of Ukraine for the security guarantees for us, and it's very important they are on our side, that they are resilient, so they won't give up the interest of Ukraine without compromising and giving up the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, without recognizing any territory that Russia has occupied, without legally recognizing any of the occupied territories as Russians. And that's important for the United States as well. We heard from the United States, about this or that compromise about the territories. We heard about them in the media. In the Saudi Arabia, we have not talked about it. And it is very important here to have a joint, common position on the European continent, united position. Nobody is going to gift our territories to Putin or to anybody else, because they broke the international law, and they should be charged, and they should be responsible for that. This is our united common position, at least those who were present there today. There, your question there.
Bonjour, Nicolas Burnand de la radio RTL. Deux questions, Monsieur le Président.
Hello, Nicolas from RTL Radio. We have understood the distinction between peacekeeping forces and reassurance forces. Emmanuel Macron explained what it was all about, that they will not be on the contact line, but they will be maybe in the cities and will not be a substitution to the Ukrainian army. Could you tell us what it would look like? This is my first question, and I have a second question. A few months ago, you discussed with Emmanuel Macron about sending military trainers in Ukraine. Where does that stand right now?
The tasks of this contingent will not only be the security guarantees, or the security guarantees will not only be their location at the strategic points. I just can't talk about it for the time being, even though I understand certain things already, because we understand that we have certain agreements about that. But there's also a training component. There's production, there's co-production component. There are licenses that our partners have. This is also a solution. It's a long-term, not simple, but Emmanuel and I have already agreed about certain things, and there are licenses that we'd like to receive from our partners in order to produce this in Ukraine. This is quicker, faster, and cheaper, to be honest. And the exchange of technologies, our technologies that we developed during this war with regard to the drones, or as far as the missiles and air defense protection, these achievements and technological achievements we're going to share with our partners who would guarantee our security with their troops' presence. Thank you. Next question.
Hello, Julie for France 24. We see the way the negotiations are carried out in Saudi Arabia and the press releases which are different according to the different delegations, and we see the way the summits take place at the European level with very little clear progress. Are we too low, we as Europeans, and can you really today trust the Americans?
Compared to the country which is at war. The entire world lives at a slow pace, a very slow pace. And this is not an accusation. These are just absolutely different realities, and I agree with you here. Unfortunately, what we would like to do within 1 week, it takes months to achieve that. What we can do and protect or resolve some issues within 24 hours, it takes either weeks or months again, judging by the equipment that is being repaired. Why we want to do so much in Ukraine, why I always wanted to obtain licenses from our partners, and unfortunately we haven't really succeeded in pressuring the United States in giving us licenses for the production of Patriots. Why? Because it takes a long, long time. We're being hit on a daily basis by missiles, and on a daily basis we have those who are killed and injured and wounded, and we lose people. And it's hard to explain to those people who live in a different dimension, and live at a different pace. I don't know how to say that. Well, how can I say that? Live in a different idea of the world. I don't know. You know, it's like, for example, I didn't want to say that, but it's about trust or lack of trust. For example, there's one of the representatives of the United States, America, who works with the Russians, Witkoff, and he says things. And it looks like and sounds like he says it for us, for things, and for us, for Ukrainians. They look in a very abstract manner. They look abstract. This is from another world. For us, these people are from another planet. We are at war. And somebody told me that he's a very specific person. He's always been a business person. He dealt with real estate. And let me give you an example. I believe when he dealt with real estate, as usual, the questions that people had were like, what is the view from the window, where the windows are facing of this real estate, how many rooms are there? But in Ukraine, in order to understand where we are at, our questions about the real estate is only one. Is there a shelter there in this house? See, I mean, this is not just a reproach. This is not just an accusation of somebody. We just live in different realities, different worlds. We want to live in a normal world, under normal realities, in peaceful realities, and we've been doing everything for that. But it's just our view and our opinion of one thing. Same things are different. And when you say, don't you think it's all going slowly? Well, so, look, I do believe so. I believe so very much, but we can't push everyone. We are doing as much as we can, and we are trying it very hard. We live in a different time frame, and this is very important. And it's not an issue of trust or non-trust. The issue is that with the United States of America as our partners, Europe will be in more security today, and Ukraine will be getting more assistance today. It's not about trust or lack of trust. It's just absolutely clearly understood pragmatic things. The thing that the future should be built on security alliances, not on paper. The fact that Europe should be able to protect itself independently. The fact that the decisions should be made very quickly. You know, because of this war, here is an example of communication for you. I, for example, with Emmanuel, I speak very quickly with him on a daily basis, and with others. And when the war started, with many leaders, I started communicating in a very quick manner on the phone. Because I said, look, it's very difficult for us to order like it used to be. And in many countries, it's been done to this day. One can book a conversation with a leader. Yes, the conversation will happen in 5 days. The war, unfortunately, and the war has won over these approaches. Technologies are helping us to solve the issues quicker. And again, there's no chance for you. In the first days of the war, I communicated. I had 15, 20, 30 leaders on a daily basis. I communicated with 30 leaders on a daily basis. I've been talking to them on a daily basis. If I were to book a conversation, I didn't have a direct line of communication, to be honest. Well, we wouldn't have achieved anything. It's not the issue of me. It's the issue of our people, of our armed forces, in everything, in all directions, including myself. As a main communicator for my states, I also have been changing this story. This is what digital diplomacy is about. This is what it is like now. And you're right, everything is just too slowly. But yes, unfortunately. But everything is already going quicker than before, believe you me.
Hello, Philippe Ricard for Le Monde, French newspaper. Thank you for this press conference. Since we were talking about communication between you and different Western leaders, how would you qualify your relationships with Donald Trump 2 weeks after what happened in the Oval Office, a bit more than 2 weeks actually? Do you trust him again in some way? This is a follow-up of a previous question. And talking about the negotiation methods selected by the Americans, when do you think that you should start having direct negotiations, the United States, Russia, Ukraine, and possibly the Europeans in the same room, discussing the different topics? How come this, the way negotiations are carried out normally for peace is not used this time? Is it because of Putin? Is it because you do not want to see him? What do you expect? What are you waiting for before you move on to the next step?
What blockage? Just one, Russia, and namely Putin. It's all very simple. He's not ready for direct talks. We're not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of any format of talks. We're at war, and not theoretically, but in a very practical manner, unfortunately, and I know everything. What's happening in our country at this time of war. We understand where we have difficulties on the front line. At each kilometer is what we lack. I deal with the weapons kit. I talk to some leaders, and they always have been. They were all surprised that I knew more details about what they have with it from, in terms of weapons, what weapon system they have, than they did. No, this is not just an accusation. No, I just needed it more than that. And I had to study all that and understood it all and in details. Therefore, I know exactly what we need. I know exactly what we lack. And I'm prepared to any format of talks. I've never been afraid. It's just Putin wants war. What can a man who wants war say at the peace talks? I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit silent there or who's going to swallow all his narratives. I'm not interested in his red caviar and his balls in the Kremlin. Perhaps he will surprise somebody in the world. But for me, they're dinosaurs. They want to eat us up, eat us alive. But we have to defend ourselves, and we have to defend our rights. And therefore, we can't simply say, oh, let's talk, man. I have nothing just to chat about with him. We have just one goal, to end the war, to force him. If we're weak at these talks, he will threaten us at any event. And he will do at his best, at the maximum, to make sure that Ukraine loses its sovereignty, which which is also the loss of identity with the time. And we can't afford it. We can't allow it to happen. And therefore, I'm prepared for any talk. I'm ready for any talks. But I'd like to be in a strong position. And here is the answer to your first half of the question. What we would like to receive, to have from the United States of America, what I need from President Trump. I have been telling him from day one of our talks. For me, it is important to have Ukraine in a strong position at these talks, so that we would have a chance to end the war through negotiations, and not just to end the war, but have a fair peace, a lasting peace, so that tomorrow the war won't break out again. What I want these guarantees from the United States. And the issue is not how I view Trump. And I told Trump about this. I told him, look, but in 3 years, there will be another president in your country. And in 10 years, there will be yet another president in your country. But the peoples of Europe, the people of Ukraine, the people of the United States will still go on, will still be there. And if today Putin guarantees to Trump, guarantees something, and you believe this, Mr. President Trump, then after you, he may break what he has been telling you, even if you believe in something. Who is going to be responsible for that? For us. We need an understandable, clear peace that is sustainable, regardless of who is the president, who is the prime minister, who is the leader, regardless of that. That there are security guarantees that work. And if you are not giving us NATO, and it's exactly you, Mr. President Trump, who decides on that, because you are the President of the United States of America. This is the strength and the responsibility, and that depends on you. If you're not giving us NATO, well then, we please ask you, give us something, give us what is going to work equal to that. I don't know what it is. We have options that we are talking about today. We don't have any other way out. Every day we have to develop, to generate some adequate options of security, because our strategic partner is not ready, is not prepared to provide these security guarantees to us that other countries of NATO have, and that's it. And if the Russians violate any agreements, and America acts upon that, responding to that, then we all trust America, and we all trust the president. And if the Russians, if they violate, and they have no consequences. There's nothing happening to them for that. Nothing is done against them, and no sanctions are there. But on the contrary, people are talking about the weakening of the sanctions. Then it's not about trust. It's the issue about something else. What are we going to do with that, with all that going forward?
John Irish from Reuters here. What communication have you or your teams had with the US regarding the Black Ceasefire after the Saudi meeting, given Russia is putting its terms to it? I mean, are the Americans actually coming back to you and explaining to you what's going on, or are you being left in the dark? And just to go back on the reassurance force, President Macron seems very determined to send troops to Ukraine at some point without a US backstop. But can this force ever actually come into fruition without the US backing the Europeans?
Давайте з першою частиною.
Start with the first question, part of your question, and the second part of the question.
Я хотів би почути від вас більш деталі.
I'd like to hear more details about you, what exactly you're looking at in this second part of the question about the troops. Okay, let's talk about the first one. Look, we had two meetings in Saudi Arabia. First meeting was when we arrived there because the United States of America suggested a ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire. That was a proposal of the United States of America. Not my proposal, not our people's proposal. This was a proposal of the United States of America. For us, what was important is to unblock the aid and to obtain the intelligence data and to demonstrate that Ukraine wants to end the war through diplomacy, so we wouldn't lose people. I believe we have done all that. America has unblocked the aid. We have demonstrated. The American side told us this is going to be a parallel discussion with the Russians. The Russians didn't accept the unconditional ceasefire. And by this, they demonstrated to the America, in my opinion, I believe that after that, sanctions should have been introduced. Okay, let's just make a pause and not just go and advise America on what to do. They have their own personal people who can advise. But nonetheless, the Russians have not accepted it. The Russians proposed some other formats. We don't know about that. We can just only guess about that or analyze it, what we're doing. There was a second meeting at which a partial ceasefire was proposed by the American side. By the way, it was proposed what we proposed in Burgenstock. Sorry, it's about this slow pace of time. Your question about the slow pace. By the way, the ceasefire in the sky, on the sea, and the exchange of prisoners and the return of children. There was a decision in the formula of peace in Burgenstock, Switzerland, a year and a half ago. Aren't we slow at ending the war? This is not even slow. This is even worse. But okay, America somehow managed to speak with the Russians and force, in general, them to talk about the ceasefire. And they proposed again this same agenda. Ceasefire in the sky, on the sea, and humanitarian exchange. And we had a meeting about this. This was the agenda of our meeting. We believe that America has a similar meeting with the Russians in parallel, and they have the same, we're discussing the same agenda. But that's their bilateral relations. As far as our agenda is concerned, which we pursued when we arrived there, America, after consultation and speaking with the Russians, said that they're ready not to attack energy infrastructure and the ceasefire on the sea. By the way, now you've just spoke about the Black Sea only, but I would like to tell you the ceasefire on the Black Sea is only what the Russians need. We're a losing side there. Our corridor there is working. Food security is working without the Russians, has been working for a long time. But undoubtedly, we are in favor for the ceasefire. Therefore, we are prepared, we're ready, both for the energy infrastructure and civilian infrastructure and for the ceasefire on the sea. But again, the Russians are changing some agreements, and they are telling the Americans about the sanctions. About the lifting of the sanctions. Oh, okay. This is, in principle, everything that's happening. Therefore, there are three various different documents. One document is what the Americans proposed to us, and we supported that. Second, another document is what the Americans discussed with the Russians. And then it was posted to the official White House's website. And the third document, that of the Russians, who don't care what the Americans have agreed with them. They have their own position. This is what's happened. Something like that.